Did you know that kids can receive Social Security? I sure didn't. For most of my life, I just assumed that Social Security is that thing that old people get when they get old and retire. It's for seniors, and of course, never thought about it very much my entire life, of course, until I became one of those old people. And I learned that yes, kids can receive Social Security. In fact, my child is receiving Social Security, and I'm going to tell you about how and why and how other children can receive Social Security in this video later. Welcome to the UnRetired, where you're not done, but you're finally doing what you want. If you like all things retirement, this is your place. We cover finance, health, lifestyle, travel, all of it, including the most important thing is mindset. Please and subscribe to this video if you like this kind of stuff. We publish multiple videos per week, and don't forget to turn on notifications as well. I'm also going to give a quick disclaimer on this, that this is not financial advice. This is for information and education only. Everybody's financial situation in retirement is so different that it requires that you do the math on your own numbers, run your own numbers, and if possible, it's great if you can talk to a professional financial advisor or a certified planner. Highly recommend that if you can afford it. All right, let's get into this, and first let me cover my personal story. I took Social Security at age 62. I claimed early because I wanted to let some of my other investments in tax-deferred accounts continue to grow tax-free. But one thing I didn't realize is that by retiring early, I also made my child eligible because she was still a minor. Now, I had children later in life. If you haven't had children late in life and you had them when you're in your 20s or 30s, this probably isn't going to apply to you. But stick around, because there are other things that you might find interesting about minors being eligible for Social Security. But let me just tell you what a surprise this was to me, because I claimed at 62 for the reasons I just said, and it wasn't until probably 9 months into my first year on Social Security, even before I started YouTubing about retirement, I realized through a phone call, just checking on something with Social Security Administration, that the person on the other line said, "Oh, do you know your child's eligible?" And I, again, never even crossed my mind. I knew that kids in certain situations, in disability and death, could receive Social Security benefits from their parents. I had a friend growing up who received Social Security because his mother had passed. So I knew that things like that happened, but it just never dawned on me that my child would be eligible for Social Security. But she was, because she's a minor. So let's unpack all of the reasons that kids and children can receive Social Security. Let's go over the key points and all the angles. So first off, minor children can receive Social Security benefits when a parent claims. And there's a couple things that are the milestones or thresholds. Has to be biological, adopted, and sometimes stepchildren can apply in certain cases. Children must generally be under 18. They can be up to 19 if they're still in high school and living at home. And this also applies if the parent has to be retired, disabled, or deceased. The benefit is usually up to 50% of a parent's full retirement benefit. Survivor benefits, I think, can be up to 3/4 of your benefits, 75%, but up to 50% of the parent's full benefit. As it turns out, when you combine a parent's benefit and a child's benefit, it can be somewhere between 150 and 180% of the parent's benefit when they're claiming. Now, there are some limitations on this. There is what's called a family maximum, and this limits how much a whole household can receive. Social Security caps the total that's paid to one single family on one worker's record. As I mentioned before, that's typically somewhere between 150 and 180% of one parent's full benefit. If multiple children qualify, they split the child portion. So it's not that every child can get there and you can stack them. This is a total aggregate cap on the household based on one earner. The parent's own benefit is not reduced in these scenarios. It's just that the kids or children, plural, can receive the benefit. Another interesting angle is this is extra money, but it's not unlimited, but it's how it's divided that matters. Now, here's another really key thing to remember. The money is for the child, not the parent. So again, I'm going to repeat that. The money's for the child, but the parent is allowed to manage it, or the guardian can manage it. So it's paid to a representative payee, which is usually the parent. In my case, my daughter's benefit is paid to me, but then I quickly take it out of my account and I put it in one of her accounts, whether it's her 529 college plan or a savings account that I had set up for her when she was born. This money must be used for the child. It's for food, housing, clothing, education, medical care. You can save some for the child, as I do, and put it in college fund, but it has to benefit the child. That's the key thing, is it has to go to the child. The parent just can't go and spend it on whatever they want. And you have to know that the SSA, Social Security Administration, they can require accounting on this to make sure that the money is going to the child. So that's a really key thing to remember, is that this is for the child's benefit, not the parent's benefit. So this also opens up all kinds of discussions on household budgeting, your education funding, opportunity versus entitlement, teaching kids about money, all of this. And so this is something, my child's of an age where I can sit down with her and explain to her, hey, this is your money and this is how we're going to spend it on your behalf. When does a child stop receiving benefits? Normally it stops at age 18, but like I said at the introduction, sometimes the benefit can last up until the age of 19 if the child is still in high school. Now, there's an exception where the benefit can continue indefinitely if the child is disabled before the age of 22. So that's an unusual exception where if the child was disabled, not able to work or go to school or anything like that, they could continue receiving their child benefit on the parent's benefit indefinitely. Now, all of this also raises some emotional and practical angles that you should consider. This isn't forever, and families should plan that it's going to end. In my case, I know exactly the date that it's going to end. So this isn't something I'm banking on receiving for the rest of my life, for the rest of my kids' life. There is an end date on this. The claiming strategy can affect when the kids get the benefit as well. If you delay claiming, kids don't receive anything yet. But like I said, in my case, I was about 9 months late before I claimed on my daughter's behalf, and they paid me back almost, not quite the 9 months. I think they paid me back eight months, which again, I ended up putting into a savings account, and now I use some of the benefits she gets for her current living, but I also fund her 529 and a small savings account. So again, this is also one of the things to remember. I claimed early. Now, the other thing about delaying your claiming is that if I had waited till 65, or certainly if I'd waited till 67, my daughter would be on the verge of graduating high school. She wouldn't really be eligible for a benefit. So if you delay claiming past 62, there's a probably high probability that your child is not going to be eligible, or is not going to be eligible for very long. So claiming early absolutely can unlock the benefit, as claiming early also can unlock spousal benefits in addition to children's benefits as well. You can materially change your cash flow with these decisions. So again, as I said up front, always do the math on your own. I also recommend talking to the SSA itself, Social Security Administration. In spite of whatever you may have heard, I've found them to be incredibly helpful. I found the hold times not to be too long or inconvenient. I just put them on speakerphone and do something else, and then they'd come on and I get what I needed. So that's actually not as hard to figure out, but definitely talk to the Social Security Administration if you think you and your child might be eligible. So this leaves with a really powerful planning insight. As I said, I'm spending some on her expenses and also her 529. But for families with young kids, Social Security timing, it could be way more than just about your retirement. It could be about your household expenses now. So that's a really key thing to bring into this as well. Another thing about having kids on Social Security is the survival benefits for kids are often larger than people expect. If a working parent dies, children may receive up to 75% of the parent's benefit. It goes up when there's a death involved. So again, the family maximum is going to apply here. So if there was multiple children and a parent died, the benefit's going to be capped and split between the kids. Often, one of the most important protections that families overlook is this survivor benefit. It's a really nice insurance policy. And again, I'm going to remind people, this is not government welfare. Social Security is something that you paid into for your entire career. It's your money. You deserve the benefit back. And that means you should think about Social Security as it's basically the largest life insurance system in the country. All right, before we wrap up, please subscribe to this video if you found it helpful. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below. I read every one of them, and in my comments, I know for a fact that other members of the community are getting benefit out of your questions and comments and sharing your own stories. So there it is. Kids can receive Social Security. I was surprised about it, but it's legitimate that kids can receive it, and it can be an incredibly powerful safety net in the right scenarios. So to conclude, kids can receive Social Security, and it's a surprise to a lot of people that kids are eligible. I certainly was a little bit surprised by it, but again, as I just mentioned, it's your benefit. You paid into the system, and if your child is eligible, 100% you should look at claiming the benefit on your child's behalf. And it's particularly useful, as I said, in those situations where there's hardship or a death in the family. I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.